If I'd known what was waiting beyond that door, I would have dragged Sarah through the woods until our legs gave out. That night was colder than any I remember. The sky had gone black without stars, the wind had turned sharp, and the trail, if it could still be called that, had disappeared under wet leaves. Sarah leaned against me, limping, her breath trembling. Her ankle had swollen until she couldn't take a step without gasping. We'd been lost for hours. My phone was dead, the compass spun uselessly, and the forest around us grew stranger with every turn. Even the air smelled wrong, sweet, like something rotting under wet moss. Then, through the trees, I saw light. At first I thought I was imagining it, a dull amber glow pulsing between the branches, but it stayed, steady and warm. "Sarah," I said, shaking her shoulder, "there's something up ahead." She just nodded weakly, her face slick with sweat. We stumbled toward the glow, breaking through the tree line into a small clearing. There it was, a cabin, old and tilted, its windows glowing like tired eyes. Smoke rose from a crooked chimney, cutting through the mist that clung to the forest floor. Before I could call out, the door opened. An older woman stood there, wrapped in a shawl, her gray hair tied neatly behind her head. "Oh, you poor things," she said softly. "Come in before you freeze." Inside was warmth, the kind that feels alive. The air smelled of wood smoke and something sweet, jam, maybe, or tea. An elderly man sat by the fire, polishing a pair of glasses. He looked up as we entered. "This far out?" he said. "You're lucky you found us." We explained what happened, how Sarah twisted her ankle and we lost the trail. The woman, Martha, she said, helped Sarah onto a couch and wrapped her leg with a cloth soaked in something herbal. Her husband, Victor, brought us soup and 2 steaming cups of tea. It tasted sweet, with a hint of something floral I couldn't name. The warmth hit my stomach and spread like liquid sleep. Martha smiled as we ate. "The mountains are cruel this time of year." "You'll stay until she's better," I wanted to protest, but the words felt slow, like my tongue had turned heavy. The firelight flickered across the cabin's interior, neat, tidy, filled with handmade furniture. Only one thing felt wrong. A single door at the end of the hallway, newer than the rest of the wood, sealed with a heavy lock. It looked out of place. I told myself it didn't matter. By the time I realized my eyes were closing, the world had already gone soft around the edges. I remember Sarah's voice, faint and tired. "It's warm here, David." Then nothing. Morning came like a hammer to the skull. My head throbbed, my throat was dry, and the air felt heavier somehow. Sarah was still asleep, pale and breathing shallowly. On the table, a tray waited. Bread, eggs, and another pot of that same fragrant tea. Martha greeted us with the same gentle smile. "You slept long." "That's good. Rest heals everything." But I didn't feel healed. My limbs were sluggish, my chest tight. Even helping Sarah sit up made me dizzy. Her ankle looked worse. Dark bruising now crept toward her calf. Victor sat near the window, whittling a piece of wood into a shape I couldn't quite see. He didn't look up when he said, "Storm coming. Roads will be mud by tomorrow. You're better off staying a few days." I wanted to disagree, but the room swayed when I stood. My vision blurred. Every time I inhaled, the air felt thick and warm, like it didn't want to leave my lungs. That evening, Sarah could barely lift her head. Her skin was burning hot, her voice almost gone. Martha pressed a cool cloth to her forehead and whispered, "Poor dear, she just needs rest." Then she handed me another cup of tea. The smell was stronger this time. Sweet, sharp, almost metallic. I hesitated, but Martha's eyes never left mine until I took a sip. Warmth, weight, silence. The last thing I saw before the darkness came again was the firelight flickering across Victor's face as he sat motionless, staring into the flames, the locked door behind him catching a dull red glow. The next morning pressed down like a weight. The air inside the cabin was thick and heavy, every breath slow and painful. Sarah lay beside me, her skin burning, her lips dry. When I called her name, she only stirred faintly. Martha entered quietly, carrying a tray. "Poor thing," she whispered. "The fever will pass soon. Drink this, it'll help." She set the tea down. The same sweet scent filled the room again, clinging to the air. I took a sip. It was sweet for a second, then metallic. My stomach clenched, but I swallowed anyway. Hours blurred together. Victor sat by the fire, motionless, staring into the flames. Martha moved about, silent and calm, her eyes flicking toward us every few minutes. By evening, Sarah's breathing was shallow. I sat beside her, changing the damp cloth on her forehead. When I pulled down her sleeve, I froze. A small bruise, a single dark point at the center, a needle mark. I looked toward Martha. Her back was turned at the stove. She didn't see me watching. When Victor brought dinner, he carried 2 bowls of soup and 2 cups of tea. I lifted mine, pretending to drink, then leaned toward the small plant near Sarah's bed and poured the tea into its soil. The liquid disappeared with a soft hiss. Minutes passed. Martha smiled faintly, cleared the table, then left. The firelight dimmed. I waited for the usual heaviness, the fog that swallowed me each night, but it didn't come. My head stayed clear. My heart beat fast but steady. Sarah's breathing slowed beside me. Her eyes rolled beneath her lids. She was already gone to that strange, drugged sleep. And then I understood. It wasn't illness. It wasn't exhaustion. They'd been drugging us, night after night, keeping us weak, quiet, half alive. That night I lay still, pretending to sleep. The cabin creaked. Somewhere deep in the house, a clock ticked slowly. Then, soft footsteps. 2 sets. The door opened. Victor entered first, lantern in hand. Martha followed behind him. Neither spoke. They moved to Sarah's bed. Victor rolled up her sleeve. Martha unfolded something metallic, thin glass tubes connected to a small hand pump. It wasn't a syringe. It was a device built to take. Victor pressed the end to Sarah's arm and began to pump. The sound was soft, steady, like a heartbeat. Dark red liquid slid through the tube, coiling inside the glass chamber. The light from the lantern caught it. Thick, deep crimson. My body went cold. They weren't helping her. They were draining her. When I tried to move, my body answered like wet clay, slow, unsteady, wrong. The room tilted. The lantern's glow flickered across the walls. Victor's shadow loomed over Sarah's bed, the faint pumping sound still filling the air. I forced my legs under me, bracing on the table for balance. The wood groaned. His head snapped toward me. For a moment we stared at each other, his eyes dull, empty. Then he crossed the room faster than I thought a man his age could move. I barely lifted an arm before the lantern swung. A flash, a burst of heat, then nothing. When I came to, the light was different, colder, gray. Morning, maybe. The air smelled of iron and smoke. My wrists burned. Thick ropes dug into my skin. I was lying on the same bed, my arms stretched wide and tied to the frame. I turned my head. Sarah lay on the other bed. Still. The color was gone from her face. One arm hung over the edge, pale against the floorboards. Her skin looked thin, almost transparent. Something inside me cracked. I pulled against the ropes until the frame creaked, but they didn't give. Footsteps approached from the hallway. Victor entered first, carrying the same device, its glass chambers half filled with dark liquid. Martha followed, silent, her hands folded neatly in front of her. They didn't speak. They moved with the calm rhythm of people finishing a routine they'd done countless times. Victor set the device on the table beside me. The metal caught the weak daylight. He pressed the tip of the glass tube against my arm and began to pump. The first pull was gentle, a faint pressure, a whisper of pain. I watched my own blood climb through the tube, coiling upward like smoke under glass. The world slowed. My pulse echoed somewhere far away. Then I heard it, a dragging sound, a breath that didn't belong to either of them. It came from behind the locked door, the one that had never opened. The handle turned. A soft metallic click. The door creaked inward. At first I thought it was a shadow, but it stepped into the light. Tall, thin, gray-skinned, its body frail yet long, its face young but warped, as if someone had tried to remember what a person should look like and got it slightly wrong. Martha's voice was calm, almost tender. "Son, go ahead. Daddy's got your drink." Victor poured the blood from the glass chamber into a cup and handed it to the figure. It took the cup with trembling hands and began to drink. The sound was soft and wet, slow. As it swallowed, the smell of iron thickened in the air. The faint rhythm of the pump matched the sound of its breathing. And then I understood why the door was locked, why we were kept alive. The ropes around my wrists loosened as my strength left my body. My vision blurred, edges melting into black. The last thing I saw was Victor's steady hand refilling the device. The last sound was the gentle pulse of the pump starting again.